Hello, we're just about to complete Suffolk Coastal's local plan final draft stages, and this actually ends on the 25th of February, and to that end Walton Community Television put 6 questions, quite broad, to the Cabinet member on what impact this may have specifically actually to Walton and the wider Felixstowe Peninsular community. And the questions we asked were housing, the district needs versus Westminster requirements. 2 was, has the existing local plan addressed these local needs? 3, what is the rate of build and are the types of dwellings in some areas over provided? 4 was confirmation of security of local amenities, that was Cowpasture Allotments, the Grove and Eastwood Hoe Sports. Confirmation of the self-build provision within the scheme, because this was a requirement by central government about 3 years ago, and it was how will this be delivered. And then 5, we questioned whether the engagement with the community, that's you, as a whole, was as seamless and informative as it could have been, because this is the final document, an A3, folded, and it doesn't really tell you very much about what will be going where, supported by what. So have a look at the interview with the Cabinet member responsible for the local plan, and if there are any issues arising out of that that you would like more information on, we'll be glad to try to get it on your behalf. So sit back, enjoy, get a cup of tea, and we'll be updating this in the weeks. We are sort of midway through the final consultation on the final plan, local plan for Suffolk Coastal. The last meeting was held at Saxmundham last Wednesday. The public could attend to. Which I didn't attend, I apologise. No, I did. I was a glutton for punishment and went to 2. Felixstowe and. Now the whole process finishes, I believe, on my birthday, 25th of February. Ah, so you're not likely not to forget that, no, then, are you? That well and truly in mind. So basically, on that particular day, the 25th, anybody who has any comments to make on the entirety of this plan or any other pertinent issues needs to get that to you here in Melton, is that right? Well, that's one of the ways. What we're really talking about, of course, is not just comments, but a representation. Oh, right. A proper form filled in to say, because at this stage, we are looking at legal requirements and soundness. Have we gone through the process correctly? Because, as you can appreciate, and I think I said at the council meeting a few weeks back, right, we have to follow that government process exactly to the letter. Yes. Because if we don't, then we could be accused of corruption. We're either favouring the site owner or we're favouring the public. So these poor chaps here have to absolutely obey the rules precisely. If we haven't, then we will fail the test of soundness, and the government minister will check through to make certain we have done it. Likewise on that, it's very much up to the public to say, have these people done their job properly? Is this a sound plan? Right. Is it legally correct, and if they abide the consultations and all the other things which are listed in the document, have they followed the rules? Okay. And if we haven't, then the inspector will pull him up, and of course the inspector can listen to the public. And the way you do it, of course, is either fill the form in and send it in, or it's online. Right. So one of those forms within the Felixstowe Peninsular area should be available to be collected, or available from the library, or they can print it out. Yes, they're in the library. Would that be right? Yes, they're in the library. Good. Okay. We submitted. From the town hall, of course. Ah, right. There's a further option. Yes. Excellent. Now, we did propose a few questions to you before we set up this interview. The first one was housing, and it was the district needs versus Westminster's requirements. Yes. Now, there is a feeling in the land that this is rather more an imposed level of development on the authority, rather than the authority itself relating to local needs. So can you dispel that particular concern? Over the years, we have tried very, very many ways of finding out what our actual needs are, from paying exorbitant sums to
consultants to work it all out and working out on the professionals, and we've come up with a number of answers. But they have to say that a lot of those answers are not necessarily acceptable, and what we wanted, and this is one of the things we were setting on, what we want and what the government want is a set way of doing it across the country.
Right.
So
a standardisation.
A standardised method of calculating it, because it has been used very, very much by the developers and the question of 5-year building land supply. If they can challenge the number of houses that we think we need,
Yes.
they can then put in a claim for 5-year building land supply, and none of the policies on housing are then in place, so they can do what they like. So that's been the challenge. Sorry, but what we've been pressing for is, can we please have a standard methodology for doing it across the country? And at last the government have come up with it, and it's a scheme that's based upon median house prices and median wages, to say how a district is going to develop, and that's what we have now got.
Right, so at the time the Secretary of State allowed the development at Stennett's Farm, that particular method of making that decision wasn't actually in place.
Was not there. It almost was, I won't say 2 weeks later, but very shortly afterwards, the Secretary of State put this standard system in.
Right, okay.
Which of course we were not particularly happy with, because if you'd done it a month or so earlier,
you could have had some protection.
Yes, but that was the way that we got into this situation. Anyway.
So basically, that allowed the 460 dwellings plus other bits to be built on Stennett's Farm. Yeah. Okay. Now, if we look at the size of the community that we are, and the size of the community that we will become, it looks very much as if the Felixstowe Peninsula will increase by about a third.
Yes, I would agree with that. 38% with Felixstowe and Trimley.
That's a considerable growth within an area within that time frame. Yes. Now, I think I'm correct in saying...
What time scale are you talking about then?
Well, we're talking 2036.
2036, right. A third increase in Felixstowe to 2036. Yeah.
So, if we look at what Shelter came out with some little time ago, that the net deficit of dwellings within England was something like 3 million dwellings. And we have 25 million dwellings within the UK, or within England.
Within England, yes.
Yeah. So that's pretty much like 12%.
Right.
They were looking for an increase. So if we are having an increase of 38%, that's sort of 3 times what the expectation. So is the driving from Westminster that this becomes areas where you've got economic development and you can afford
this is very much this local planning authority's push to get Felixstowe developed. Felixstowe is a very, very thriving town. It is growing very much in the jobs front, in the town front, and in the general facilities, and we would like to see this become a very, very thriving little town, one large town as we're going to become, and that's why the centre of attention went there, because that is an area that can really become, I won't say the jewel in the crown for Suffolk Coastal, but a very, very promising development for Suffolk Coastal. It's got everything going for it that we can see. There might be bits around the edges that you might not like, but it's got a lot going for it. And that's the natural place, we think, to put a number of houses.
Right. Despite the problem with the infrastructure insofar as the road network and the existing network.
The point about it is that when we do that, of course, the planners around here have a look at the problems that would be incurred in that, and they are in the policies that we look at in here. They've listed them out, the schooling, the roads, the doctors, and all the other ones that go with it. They will have to be addressed.
Yes, I accept that, but what I'm talking about is rather a more regional one, which is effectively the road network, the pressure it's currently under, the fact that the dock is yet to get beyond half of the capacity that's allowed to go to, so that traffic will, over the lifetime of this, undoubtedly move towards the 6 million capacity that it has for throughput over that period. And as we know, sadly, the Orwell Bridge is under quite a lot of strain already. And I did raised the point of, are we addressing the northern bypass of Ipswich to give us another feed, not utilising the bridge but utilising the bypass, to take a lot of traffic off the bridge that could go to Lowestoft.
If I could give
so it was really
personal view.
Yes.
My own personal view of it is a northern bypass, I think, is going to be essential.
Yes, I would have thought so.
To be able to keep the roads around here going, and that's exactly why they're bringing it forward in planning terms, to try to put to the government to build it. I haven't got the latest picture. It should have been last week, I think, sometimes.
Yes, they're supposed to be.
But I haven't seen what that is. But we certainly have discussed in a different forum on a different basis. We've discussed the northern bypass, and it's generally sort of considered to be, it should be dual carriageway, but not. We haven't agreed which one of the three routes proposed.
No.
It's going to be, but you know, fair dues that we can go down that road.
Okay. Can I just show you?
Yep.
No, you need to look
That way up.
That way up.
I've got it. I can see Felixstowe.
You can see Felixstowe.
Yes.
And can you see the dotted lines there?
Yeah.
That was the proposal by the Felixstowe Urban District Council back in 1970, earlys, I would have thought, that they needed to have a bypass to the whole community.
Yes.
And also a feed to the port.
Yes.
And that was the design that they adopted. So they've gone past the Trimleys, past Walton, and into Felixstowe, and they took all the traffic away, because previous to that, on the A45 as was, which was there, that particular road during the week, but particularly at weekends when tourists were coming into the town, was an appalling. It could take you an hour and a half to get from that point to the beaches. So that's why the bypass was actually built. The concern I have now, when we look at your garden resort and whatever, we are now putting the housing that people will be in right to and alongside that bypass.
Yeah.
So it really looks as if all the thinking and whatever back in the 70s to improve the quality of life of the community living on the feeder roads into our town are going to be, or the quality will be back to what it would have been on the old A45.
Right.
So what is going to be done to negate that impact on the community?
You are assuming, of course, that this is a planning application.
Sorry, what?
You're assuming that we've put forward a planning application where we have to address and solve all these issues. The answer is we have listed the fact that there are considerable and serious, well not serious, considerable issues regarding the transport and the movement, the transport infrastructure around the site, and it's listed in here.
Yeah.
When it comes to be developed, now we have to start really looking at what are we going to do about the roads, and if we can't have a satisfactory solution to the roads, then it doesn't get built.
Right. So there are safeguards and there are mitigation.
The big safeguard is planning.
Right.
No, the biggest safeguard is are there any developers who want to come in and build? That's number one. And secondly, if they do, they're going to have to put in their planning application in line with the policies that we've put in here, which is schools, roads, da-di-da-di-da.
Right.
And that's what they've got to come up with.
Okay.
So it could put people off, it could encourage people to come. It depends what the demand for houses is in Felixstowe. If there is no demand,
then there'll be no build.
there'll be no build.
Okay, so we're going to make it a very unfriendly, unwelcoming town, and then the residents won't have residents that they don't want joining. Okay, can we just...
I couldn't possibly comment.
No, and you haven't. Now, a question here was, has the existing local plan addressed local needs? And when I say local needs, I'm talking about affordability for our young folk.
Yes.
Which is a key concern of pretty much all of us, I think.
Yes.
But there is another one, and that is, currently we seem to have underutilisation of the existing housing stock, because for people of my age and older, and particularly those who are the survivor of a partnership, there is a lack of downsized housing for them to move into, and that which does exist seems to be very expensive and doesn't actually take care of end of life need, such as some of the sheltered housing previous that were built in Felixstowe did. So did the current existing local plan, is it addressing either of those two key issues.
The thing
really.
that certainly will address is the fact that when as I said earlier on, I've been around most of the villages in Suffolk Coastal, and I would say a standard thing that comes up, we want something for first-time buyers and last-time buyers.
Absolutely right. Couldn't have put it better.
And therefore, that was the basis of the whole plan, and that's why we have policies in here very much about affordable housing and what we're going to do it. Particularly when we start looking at rural communities, because a lot of the rural communities want the ability to develop their own little small-scale development for their own people. If you
in an organic way.
And what we're talking about there is exception sites, and we're talking about infill to a certain extent. And that's the policies we put in this document specifically to address those.
Right.
But certainly there is the encouragement to build affordable houses. I'm not sure that over the past we haven't built enough the houses that we need, but we have built the houses that we've got in our policies, if you see what I mean.
Ish.
Yes, well, you know what I mean. We have a policy.
Yes.
And it's very easy to say you've just got to build lots and lots of affordable houses, and the next thing you get is a developer sitting at the table and in planning at the planning committee saying that this is not viable. And we've seen it, of course, very close, just up the road.
Yes.
The thing there, and they will, and it's a long and serious consideration.
It is.
Is my plan viable? Because you've now got sill.
Yes.
You've got other things about environmental things that cost them about £1,000 a house. Then you stick on, well, of course, at the moment it's a third is affordable houses. If you increased it to 50%, you wouldn't get them built because they wouldn't do it.
Okay, that possibly.
But we have seriously, I'm talking about it, because I know, because I said it at the policy thing, we have seriously got to look at, and we have, at the first time, last time buyers across the piece, let alone in the countryside, is a serious problem out there. And if the parish council want to do it, and they've got a bit of land, we will be there.
Right.
With an exception site.
Okay. The rate and the type, which we just touched on, haven't we, is that are we getting enough downsize, which would be your last time buyer and your first time buyer? Or we did have a period of building starter homes, didn't we, in Cavendish, etc.
Yeah.
And when we look at the outcome there, basically they were initially bought by young families. I think if you look at or you revisit them now, you'll find pretty much they're all buy-to-let landlords, and there doesn't seem to be a way.
I
of
wish
ensuring,
there was somewhere we could do.
Yeah, I know, but this is a problem, isn't it?
Yes.
That we're not really providing affordable, suitable housing for growing families. Therefore, they move somewhere where they can. You then end up with a displaced situation where the very people you would be looking to support their aged relative, be it parents or aunts or uncles or whatever, aren't there to do that. So the whole system fragments, doesn't it?
You have to have a look at the whole thing, because in the care system, that could save money. If you've got someone next door,
well, of course,
or in the same village.
And a lot of those folk, I think there are more carers than anything else in employment in the country, isn't it? They're just not.
But we have got and it's in the plan on, I can't remember what name, page 91 or something, recommendations for the size of houses.
Yes.
But it's across the whole of the Ipswich strategic policy area, so it's not just us.
Yeah.
When we look at that one, they analyse what we need across virtually the whole of Suffolk, I suppose, but it includes Baber, Mid-Suffolk, Ipswich, and they're coming up with figures of 1 bedrooms 12%, 2 bedrooms 29%,
right,
3 bedrooms 27%,
right,
and 4 plus 33%.
Really?
That's the figures
that
they consider are needed in this particular environment.
So is that the housing needs survey for that whole district,
or that whole catchment area? Yes.
Right. So we're
that isn't a government figure.
No,
that was a figure done by consultants.
Yes.
Analysing.
Yeah, I was trying to remember the last one we had. It was done by, I think, Cardiff University or somebody or other, and that was a while back.
But it's caused me a little bit of concern.
Yes.
Because it is.
The 4 sounds a bit surprising.
The 4 seems to be a bit high.
Yes, it does.
It's higher than it was in the previous one.
That surprises me.
And
when I look at family size and 2.2 per.
And the reason is that we are now looking across a much bigger area than we were when we
Exactly.
sort of think.
Yeah, so the bigger you go, the less the individual adjustment or
So
based on an area.
that's what we're. But now, having said that, I can't remember, and I've sat at planning meetings for the last 8 years,
Yes.
and I don't remember at any occasion where we've actually said, "Hold on, we've hit the we've hit our target, hit the buffers for the number of 3-bedroom houses." We've always got councillors there who said, "Oh, we want higher densities."
Yes, I mean that.
And you know who I'm talking about. But
Yeah.
the point is,
Yes.
the point is that when I talk to developers, and which we do on a large number of occasions, about because they say what actually is needed, and we say first time, the downsizers and last time buyers, and to a certain extent that has happened.
But I think when you look at the space that's supposed to be accommodating 2,000 dwellings,
Yes.
plus what, 600-700, plus
Yeah.
whatever, that physically seems to be a lot smaller than the whole area, which is currently accommodating 11,000.
Right.
So it does look as if, by default, that you've actually got a greater density. That's assuming that gets built out at 2,000 dwellings. That's
I mustn't make the comment, but yes.
Okay, there is a concern about, particularly in this area, which is was referred to as the green lungs of Felixstowe, in the Felixstowe master plan.
Yes, indeed.
It's really how will the green space in there be protected. I've got confirmation of security of local amenities, Cowpasture Allotments, the Grove, and Eastwood Hoe Sports and Play Space. And
Right.
you've responded saying following comes.
Can I? You
Yeah,
haven't got your book with you at the moment, have you? But could I show you SCLP 12.3, which is the North Felixstowe one?
Yes,
and if you look down there, you will see precisely what we're talking about in the words of
Yes, I
protection.
saw it.
It mentions specifically Cowpasture Allotments, the Grove and Eastwood Hoe Sports Centre. So.
But I didn't see Cowpasture there. I saw it back here somewhere.
It was up there. It should be in there.
It was not creating. It was in a previous bit. I think we had a look for it at Saxmundham when we went. So the bit about Cowpasture wasn't in that.
Okay.
And that was the bit that concerned me.
In which case, put in one of these things.
I will, but it needs to be put in there.
Yes.
But I think perhaps Mark can find where it was. And that was sort of a warning bell, a warning.
Yeah,
Because the
saying-
problem we do have, and this is a bit that I may come on the fifth question, is you were probably not aware that when we had Steve Brown as the planner, when we had the blob method of planning,
Yes.
a big blob sat right on top of Cowpasture Allotments, and there was a deal of concern and debate,
yes, yes.
and that was eventually removed, and we moved further out to Innocence Lane
Yes.
from a point of view of what we might.
Well, if it's not in there, make sure it does go in, and I'm sure
I will
Mark
do that.
will agree to that.
Yeah,
but that is absolutely what we're on about.
Yes, that's what we
We
need to
think
do.
we've covered everything. The government want us to cover every eventuality,
Right.
and you found one that perhaps we haven't covered.
Okay, if we move on to question 5,
Yes.
confirmation of self-build provision as per development plan. Can I just say, when this whole new planning system was presented to the council way back in I don't know.
When Nelson
I
lost his eye.
Yes, he did, pretty much. The reason it was being changed from the old system was that this would enable a part of a paragraph or section to be changed speedily in the event of government change, regional change, changing circumstances. So I was very concerned that the self-build provision, which was a government
Yes.
new bit of
Yes,
legislation,
yes.
I think came out a couple of years ago,
A bit more than that, probably. Yes.
Yeah. that it still doesn't apply to our district because it's not in our local plan.
But it is in our local plan.
Well, it will be in this one, but the one that we're currently working with.
We have actually got a self-build register, which the government requires us to
Yeah.
do. It's got 250 houses on it. And should people come through into the planning people here and say, I want to invoke, that part of that, can we talk together how we can do it? So it can be done at the moment.
Right.
What I've tried to do in this particular plan
Yes.
is to make that very obvious and very much easier to do.
Right. So, how was the existing local plan adapted or implemented or changed to reflect government guidance on what they wanted provision for self-build, or isn't it, or is it just an understanding?
No, it is in fact a thing that we haven't changed the local plan.
That's what concerns me.
We have actually put notes round to say that we now have a self-build register,
right?
And that's what the government required us to do.
Right.
To tell certainly parish councils and town councils we have a self-build register. That if you've got real cause to do it, I mean, it can be lots of different things. And one of the things, of course, we're interested in is the unit construction things that are coming on. We would like to see some of those. That's very easily done, and we can meet our housing targets very quickly and easily on that front.
Yes,
so
you can.
We're not against them. The ratio in here is something like, I can't remember, 5 is it? I can't remember.
It's 5 plots per 100
yes.
plots for, or on developments above 100.
But the point about it is, again, this is flexibility, because if you want more than that, then, and there's a very good case, then let's go for it.
Right. The question that I asked on this was, we've got a register, but there isn't any requirement on, say, any big planning application coming before you currently, that they would be providing these 5 plots. You're waiting for this to be approved, for that to be a commitment to the developer.
Developers know all well about self-build, and I've talked to people about self-build,
right,
developers and things, but as yet we haven't had any come forward. Now, you could say that's because we haven't made a big splash about it and really pushed it and everything else, but
right.
But the government, we've set up a register.
Right.
Developers know about that register, and I have talked to lots of developers who said that they're going to put a bit on one side specifically for it, even now with the current plan.
Right. So you've already,
where, but there are a number of sites not far from here.
Okay. So you've already got 250 or over 250
yes.
expressions of interest.
Yes.
And that's spread across the whole district.
Yes.
So what really is of interest to me, we're looking at a developer-led development.
Yes.
But where the land being used, or is considering to be used, is actually publicly owned land, this requirement of but 5 per 100 plots is in the gift, surely, of the public authority, publicly owned land person who's disposing of it. You could look to have a complete scheme of. I'm just reflecting back to what used to happen here before I left to go overseas back in the 70s.
Yes.
And there were a number of self-built schemes, and they were supported by local authorities.
Yes.
They actually made mortgages available. It was an ongoing scheme. And when I returned, it seemed to have died, and I never knew why that was the case. And it struck me that currently, what folk who don't perhaps have the way to have it in money might have it in time and commitment.
But away from a local plan, there are well placed now movements of within Suffolk Coastal and in Waverley as well, in East Suffolk, shall we say,
right,
to look at how we can make money available from the council to do just such schemes. At the moment, what we're saying in this document, of course, is if the developer wants to build 100% thing, he can do it.
Right.
And the same with if it's our land, we can say, well, what a damn good idea that would be.
So that's really a guide.
There's no restrictions whatsoever.
Okay, so it's a comment I can be making to the inspector.
But what we're trying to say
yes.
is the fact that if you are going to build 100, don't think you're going to get away with doing none, because we've got a minimum of 5.
Yes. Yeah.
So we've plugged that little gap. At least we get some out of it.
Right.
But I do find developers are quite not keen to do it, but they're amenable.
Yes.
If that gets them their consent.
Well, absolutely, absolutely. But the phrase that stuck in my mind on the whole bit was at the time this self-build bit was going through Parliament, was that it was looked that the sites be shovel ready. Which I think is perhaps a European term, because that's what they do.
Yes.
So one would assume you put in water, you put in sewerage. So that is all there, and it's a part of a bigger scheme perhaps, and they can, piggyback in on the back end of it, can't they?
Until, of course, you work out who's going to fund that.
Well, that's the point.
And that's
I mean,
my problem.
If I remember correctly,
if I'm in Germany or Holland, yes, I can see who funds it.
well, they do it.
As a matter of course.
Yeah. But I mean, our self-build proportion in this country is abysmal. It is appallingly awful.
Minuscule.
Yeah, it is. It's awful. Okay, now the final question we asked was the engagement and communication, and it was a concern, and I think it was highlighted by this elderly gentleman that I met in Felixstowe Library on Friday afternoon when I went down to see what they had from the point of view of the public, whatever. And there was a massive, or quite a big display of Sizewell C, with lots of papers you could take away, and all the documentation laid on the table. But the Felixstowe bit was actually behind the counter, and it was sort of something you asked for. There was no display, nothing telling folk that it was there. And as we just raised at the beginning of the conversation, there wasn't any sort of printed response form or reaction form, and I do realise that we're becoming a very digital world, but we are increasingly discriminating against pen and paper, it would appear, and if you are making provision, should we not be informing the library service that there is a means of doing it by pen and paper as well as by a computer link?
Well, my understanding, I know last one, my understanding that these were provided at libraries. Now, what I can understand is there's a comment in there where you said there are more pictures than there is thingy, which...
Yes, detail we thought was a bit thin.
Yeah, but that's really, if you're a member of the public, you know, you've got that list there, and together with a piece of paper there which says that's my representation for.
Yeah.
The thing that
it was the numbers, actually,
the thing that really is important, of course, was the paper that we sent to town and parish councils, which is a detailed thing. A lot of town and parish councils have copied that out to the public.
Oh, right.
As such, and also made reference to the link on the web about that, and A, how to make a representation, or if you don't want to do it online, B, where to get a form.
Yes, exactly. So does that one there does that give actually a number? Numbers now and numbers future, or
numbers of what?
What is expected to be delivered? You've given me a figure here.
Oh, no, it won't do anything. We're past that stage.
Of whatever, but the figure I think was 10,000.
No, we're well past that stage. That's all in that document there, which has gone out and gone through council and everything else.
Right.
We now go to the next stage. So we're asking people, is this a sound plan?
So what you're saying, to deliver that, is this sound to deliver that?
Yes.
Effectively?
Yes.
Okay. Well, Tony, thank you very much for seeing us.
I
think next time we need to do it before the event, and we might get a bit more of a take-up at the event.
No, I can appreciate people's concern very much about it.
And there is.
But the big thing that I really want to put out is the fact that this is not a planning application. These are propositions, and if any developer wants to take them up, he's going to have to, or her, is going to have to take up a planning application and put it through through our planning committee. Yes. And under those circumstances, all the considerations which we put into the policies will be taken on board by the planners.
Right.
So this is not the end of the game. It's not even the beginning of the end of the game, but it is the end of the beginning.
Well, at least you're laying out the pitch.
Yes.
On which the game might be played.
It
but
might
I
never,
think
ever be taken up. There might well be that developers say, no, why in the world are we going to build houses in Felixstowe because we never sell them?
And they're closing Marks and Sparks.
Yes.
And that could be a key decision maker on
and
not to go forward.
I have to say, there are sites around which I won't mention, where exactly that sort of thing is happening. Developers who were sort of really keen to start
suddenly
off with,
aren't.
Suddenly they sort of falling by the wayside as such, because they're beginning to realise that these things are not viable. Now everybody wants infrastructure, they want roads, they want schools.
Yes, they do.
But if it can't come out of this SIL money, which has just gone up again, you've got a Section 106, and a Section 106 can kill it.
Oh yes, absolutely.
And has killed it.
Well, I can see that in the ground, but I'm still a bit... If we agree that what is needed across England is a 12% increase in dwellings, and we're looking for Felixstowe to take 38%, then that seems to be, certainly to those of us that live there, that seems to be one hell of a increase in the dwelling size within our community over that period of time.
Do you believe in your town? If you believe in the,
no, well,
and the jobs and the thingy.
you're coming at me at the wrong angle, because I actually live in Walton,
Yes.
which is the original Roman settlement. So
Yes, yes.
my town has been there for 2,000 years, and it's taken that long to get to the size it is. And what you're now proposing is doubling its size in 2 decades. So there's a degree of
Yeah.
concern
Yes.
within it. But thank you very much again.
Well, it's a
Nice
pleasure.
to see you,
As I
mate.
say, if I
And-
can help in any way in this way to try and straighten things out, only too pleased.
Thank you very much indeed.
Good.
Oh,
So-
one final thing.
Final
which
question.
is the closing date we need to repeat,
Yes.
and that was the 20.
It's my birthday,
It's your
25th
birthday,
of February.
and it looks like the hearings may themselves start in June.
Yes. And don't forget, you can actually, or if you've got some very good points in your
Submission.
representations, you can actually talk to the inspector.
Yes,
personally.
I was able to do that last time.
Yes, that's right.
Okay. Thank you very
Thank
much
you.
indeed.
Yes.
Bye.